Yes, I think this is one of those initiatives from National Board for Technical Education on the issue of HND degree dichotomy, their own position, which is taken collectively as a board comprising the whole entire polytechnics in the country, is that we should move for the abolishment of HND, and in place of it to have Bachelor of Technology as a replacement, so that at least graduates of polytechnics will be able to compete hand in hand with other universities. And at the same time, they are proposing for a hybrid supervision, where the degree component of the polytechnic education will be handled by NUC, while the diploma, ND, National Diploma, will continue to be handled by NBTE.
That was the Speaker of the House of Representatives in the National Assembly, Nigeria, Tajuddin Abbas, talking about the bill which is scaled second reading to end the dichotomy between BSc and HND. This discourse has been ongoing for several years because of discrimination that exists in the formal sector, where the BSc degree is respected more than the HND certificate, and the arguments have been that the HND certificates seem to put the holders at a disadvantage when it comes to work placement and, of course, remuneration. And that conversation has been ongoing. So there is a recommendation by the bill to have a BTech, Bachelor of Technology, replacing the HND, while the National Diploma will still subsist. And then this might, according to the bill, this will end the dichotomy between BSc and HND. Doc?
Well, I don't know what to say because I think we're a nation of revoltees, and that's the only way to describe it, where we major in the minor and minor in the major. Everything in life, there are a purpose. There's a purpose why there's a day, there's a purpose why there's night. And we abuse processes and then make it look as if it's become a big deal. We just finished talking about creating an environment where we have absolute peace, and that's none of a concern. Terrorism is on the increase. I don't know. Even recently, the Minister of Education visited Yaba Tech and pronounced that Yaba Tech was becoming a university to be awarding BTech. In short, the students themselves protested that was not the purpose for the creation of that institution. That there's a purpose why polytechnic educations are created. And I think the issue to be addressed here are issues that have to do with functionality, that people who are employing or who are paying salaries are not supposed to be discriminatory in terms of how people get paid. There are university graduates today in Nigeria who are earning 50,000 naira, and there are some university graduates who are earning 500,000 naira. There are some university graduates who are earning 1 million plus. And I don't think there's any move to see how we have to unify salary or basics. And I think employment are just things that are too, for me, not too serious to even get the attention of the National Assembly that are passing a bill to say that BSc is equal to HND. And I don't think in the design that there was anything that's factored into that they have to be issued. Even in terms of way of getting admission into the programs, are two different sets. People who get into the system, they go there differently. So if I want to become a technician, I don't think they have to answer until I have a BTech before I can become very productive. There are even some places where people with vocational skill earn more than people who have graduate certification based on what people can deliver. And I think that should be the emphasis rather than abolition in a way the polytechnic education, which is meant to actually cater for the creation of a certain category of human capital for the development of the economic space.
Okay, to your point of majoring on the minor and having that vice versa, let's look at what happens when you have the HND or the BSc certificate and you are an employee in Nigeria's civil service. So holders of HND certificates awarded by polytechnics cannot rise above grade level 14 or become directors in the civil service until and unless they acquire additional academic qualifications such as a postgraduate diploma or master's certificates as awarded by universities. Now, given that, but university graduates are statutorily qualified to rise to grade level 17 as the peak of their career in the civil service in the country. Given this background, do you think we're majoring on the minor here?
Okay, so the thing is, this law or the amendment that was made, or this bill that is, going through the corridors of law enactment to become a reality, somehow I won't see it as majoring on the minor. However, it's not really going to tackle that specific issue because the employer has the liberty to employ and to put you in a category that they feel they want to put you by virtue of the organization goals. And it's either you accept or you leave it. For the civil service, what you just read, it is a law. This specific bill, even when it becomes law, cannot invalidate that. Because it's an independent organization, except this specific law is reviewed by the civil service to bring that in because now it has been changed from HND to BTech.
Yeah, but university are awarding BTech.
Yes,
we're talking about polytechnics here. We're talking about polytechnics here. Let's allow Priye finish his line of thought.
Okay, so if we do that they now start offering BTech, then we have to make sure, and that is why I like one aspect there, that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria is now part of the board of that make. It will give a direction to where Doc and all of us who were talking about that day in producing industry-specific hands, which is why the polytechnics were erected in the first place. Of course, they are equally taking it higher to see that, okay, those who govern or administrate over the polytechnics move to the level of PhD. Even though
that's the positions of the
rectors. Now, that is another good thing. But for the fact that we brought in man into that place, we must not allow man to just play insignificant role. We must make sure that the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria open up the space so that graduates from those polytechnics or from these new institutions that will be awarding BTech will open up the space for them industry-wise so that they can go there and practice the craft that they spent the year in polytechnics to learn. In that way alone, we will be bringing in good hands. But however, that specific thing of this discrimination, it's still not going to stop.
With the bill alone?
It's not going to stop.
All right. Now, this is what I think. I think that, yes, there is a need for polytechnics, just as we used to have technical colleges, and in some places, in some states, we still have them. However, there's been a deviation from the way they were intended to actually run and operate. But while we have polytechnics that are now offering courses that universities, by their design, were actually supposed to handle alone. You have courses like banking and finance, you have courses like mass communication, you have courses like political science, management science in polytechnics, as well as you have courses like fine arts, engineering, and other technically inclined courses in polytechnics. Now there is the dichotomy. We just looked at what the civil service law says. So if you come in with an HND, it means that you only get to rise to level 14, while your counterparts who attended universities are able to get to level 17 and become directors and all. Now, for the person who
unless you make progress.
That's what I'm saying.
Hey,
so you only with the HND. You only with the HND rise to 14.
Yes.
Now, if you want to go beyond 14,
yes, of course.
you need to have additional.
Yes.
But what the bottom line is, with the HND, you only get to 14. If you want to get beyond 14, you need something extra above the HND. So there is a dichotomy. Now let's look at the entry requirements for both institutions of learning. Now, when you do the UTME, even before it became the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, there was that specifically for polytechnics and then for colleges of education and universities. But with the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination, so your score puts you where you should be. You get to a certain cutoff, then you go for universities. If you to any university, if you get a certain cutoff, you qualify for polytechnics, and then if your cutoff is below that, you also go to College of Education. That arrangement was done to ensure that it is the work, it is the effort you put in that guarantees what institution you get to study in. But look at what the courses, the way they are designed, and what is being done in polytechnics and the universities. Sometimes you cannot actually tell a difference. And in a number of years, while those who are studying in polytechnics will have 4 years or almost 4 years of study, those in universities will also have the same period of study for a particular course. And then we'll look at the qualification, how the knowledge that they're able to get at the end of the day is almost same, or we can say is same. Even for technical courses, it can be said that those who go through polytechnics seem to have more technical knowledge than others. Now, they've come out, they're in the workspace, but there's a difference. Now, I think that we cannot say that the discrimination that exists is a minor issue. It's a major issue if at the end of the day, it interferes with how far people can go, having spent the same number of years studying, regardless of the entry process. But I also think that saying that polytechnics should now begin to award BTech, it doesn't really follow. It look like a mismatch, because they are polytechnics. Now, how would they be able to award Bachelor of Technology? So they are saying that should be supervised by the National Universities Commission. So it's still, it's not a very fit recommendation. However, I do think that if we need to do things right, then we should start from the beginning. Perhaps by the construct of polytechnics, we should have them in such a way that they have a degree or they have a qualification. I don't know if it's going to be called BTech, but it is not for the Universities Commission to actually determine what degree that they have, so that we have that dichotomy removed. And then there's a review as well in the civil service rule. I understand that the employer can determine who to pay higher than the other based on their competencies. But we know that we live in an environment where certificates are more respected than anything else. In fact, even the BSc degree now is being relegated for master's degree. It's like the master's degree is the new BSc.
No,
so
it is not.
It is that way. In terms of the respect it is accorded, in terms of the preference it is accorded when recruitments are done. We see these things even when vacancies are advertised.
These are bare anomalies.
But it becomes to become normal in the system.
No. Yeah, but because we are making things that are stupid look normal. And that is what is making our environment look the way it is. Why am I saying that these are not things that we can come to public space? In the UK today, as we speak, families are no longer taking their children to regular schools. They are putting their children in professional schools, vocational training. It's not because they cannot afford it, but because this is where and how they want their children raised.
But that's an environment where they look at competencies rather than certificates.
Yes, this is why I'm talking about majoring in minors. Why is the National Assembly not concerned about merit number one? What are they not concerned about? Skill development for industries, number 2. Have they ever seen that to look at it? For example, what is the purpose of a polytechnic? Irrespective of where they work, what's the purpose? Is to develop technical and people who have hands-on skill for particular industries. Now, the question that they should have been asking is, why are the polytechnic vying away from the reason why they were set up now to be embracing university courses? Then, okay, say the National Technical Board of Education should sit down to say, what is the course that's relevant? I was in Eichie Polytechnic some years ago, and I was facilitating, and I was talking to the rector, and I asked her, what's the design? Look at your buildings. They are not well made. You have people who are studying HND, building technology, and your buildings are not well made. So how will this be replicated in the industry? Say no, that even the law does not allow them to participate, that they have to award it to contracts. These are the failures in the system that needs to be addressed. That we are sure that while we are thinking about people coming even to invest, while we are talking about the ease of doing business, one of the indicators that is always measured is also that if a particular factory is to be located in a particular place, do they have skills enough on the ground that will feed that industry? Which is part of issues that we raised up earlier while we were looking at the news. So these are things that we should be concerned with as lawmakers, to say, this area, how are we going to raise skilled manpower? Today, I am telling you, people without degree in Nigeria, I know somebody who does not have degree. All certification he had is what they call it, this networking certification.
Okay.
And he's earning 1.8 million. Where some graduate with masters or PhD cannot even earn 500,000. So what it is that people must begin to sit down and look at, how is the work space evolving and what are we going to be doing? This certification thing will take Nigeria nowhere. What is taking us somewhere is the skills that we are able to appropriate. But the purpose of university education is different completely. It's supposed to be research based.
But do we have it research based?
Now this is the issue, and these are the majors. And that is what we should major on, not minors. Because all our having conversation, whether you make BSc, BTech, or make it MTech, it's the employer that will still determine what people are going to do.
But the employer's discretion will be reduced when there is already a uniformity.
So is what you have is, in other places where people have polytechnic education, in the United States they have polytechnic education. In UK they have polytechnic education. In Germany they have polytechnic education. So it's not only like that there's polytechnic education.
There is a peculiar situation in Nigeria.
Nothing peculiar about us is the fact that people deliberate. You see, the problem we are having is that people have an ambition to get to the university, but at every level they are not qualified.
Okay, so then
they are not qualified, and they settle for polytechnic, and the law design it that way, and then you graduate as HND, and then you want to flourish Mozo with somebody who qualify ab initio. So these are for me.
But let's also look at what is being offered in the system. The entry process, yes, is not the same.
Yeah.
But at the point where you are in the institutions, what is being taught in polytechnics, let's say someone who's studying engineering in a university and someone who's studying engineering in a polytechnic, are they different? Is the curriculum different?
Oh yes, absolutely very different. They are not the same. They are not the same. That is why you see that the power examining both are different. National Board for Technical Education is one examining polytechnic. IUC is the one that is evaluating universities.
And that's
why they are different, because they have different purposes. So you cannot begin to make law to address things that are immaterial as far as I'm concerned.
The reason I ask that question is by reason of what the learning they're exposed to. Is one more qualified than the other, aside the entry requirements?
Oh yes, completely, absolutely different.
Are you sure about that?
I am 100%
in terms of competencies and in terms of training. Are you sure about that?
100% sure.
I doubt that. I don't agree with that.
100%.
No, that can't be correct.
No, it's very, very correct. Because the object itself, the object of both institutions are never the same. never the same. And because the objects are not the same, then you cannot be equating the outcome.
Okay. If you take the courses that are studied on both institutions, political science in polytechnics and political science in universities, banking and finance in polytechnics, banking and finance in universities, engineering in universities, would you say that one is more qualified by the other because of the institutions of learning? What makes that, by what criteria are we assessing the qualification and saying that one is more qualified
let's look
than
at the
the
products
other?
that these two institutions churned out on a regular or yearly basis. First of all, you see that, let me make an example from those who left the system. Someone I know very well left a university system and he studied computer engineering from the system.
5 years.
I know what he did. After he left that system, he needed to go to Computer Village for 2 years internship.
Practical
Now
knowledge.
look at the 2 years internship he learned from. Those guys in Computer Village, some of them didn't study computer science in the university. He studied, that's the hardware part of computer science, the hardware part, computer engineering rather. That's what he studied. So he learned, he had 2 years. The National Youth Service Corps gives him, is 1 year. Apart from that, he had another 2 years in Computer Village to have a perfect understanding. He was talking to me like, we were told this chip and this gadget. I read about it in my textbooks and all of that. But you know what? I only saw picture. When I saw it physically, I didn't know that this was the object that we were talking about.
So he had theoretical knowledge.
He had theoretical knowledge. But those from the Polytechnic, and so I was beginning to think that, okay, if that's the case, you graduated from university from this course and someone came out from the Polytechnic or from a private training institution that is not normalized or sanctioned by the Nigerian Universities Commission, but he seems to be the one who had the real knowledge in this. So for what industries are both two organizations or institutions, for what industry are they developing these products for?
Okay, so you just got to the point. So if for certain courses, those who in polytechnics are more knowledgeable,
yes,
why is there now an arrangement that puts the ones from polytechnics at a disadvantage? Now, when it comes to no, should we allow that discretion to continue? Because some persons maybe, hold on, if we continue with that discrimination, don't you think it will discourage people from going to polytechnics? On the other hand, if we want to address this, should we not look at courses that are being offered in this institution and say, as one way to actually tackle this discrimination, if you are not going to study a technical course, you have no business in the polytechnic. So remove those courses, take them back to the university so that when you come as a graduate, you have studied political science, we expect that it's from a university. When you come as a graduate and it's a technical course, we expect that you have come from a polytechnic. So that way, there is a match, and we know that in this field you are well qualified, in that field you are well qualified.
In that particular case, then we need to do what Doc is saying. We'll go back to the basis and know the reasons why these two institutions were set up. The National Universities Commission to regulate universities, the National Board of Polytechnic Education to do their own bidding of the job. Then we'll need to have a law in place to make sure that both polytechnics and universities do not offer courses, or you don't take courses that are crossroad, probably except you've been assessed and you have the capacity to be able to do that. If not, we will be at a crossroad. However, you cannot continue to fall. It's a social issue that so probably even legislation will only solve just a part of it, because the discretion of the employer, you cannot fault that.
Okay, I'll wrap up by saying I think that the employer goes with what is stated and then discretion is just an addition. But basically, the employer is guided by what is actually provided for. So there are two ways to handle this. While the bill will go on to third reading, and then let's see if it gets passed at the end of the day. But we need to address the root cause of these issues. Institutions that are set up should strictly adhere to the purpose for which they were designed, so that we do not have abuse and we do not have situations like this where an institution was set up for technical education, but They are learning of other courses that it should have no business in the first place teaching. And then the universities that were set up for research, we actually have research being conducted there. So when we're giving honors to people, we understand and we know that they deserve the honors that we're giving to them and not assuming that they actually deserve it. We've come to the end of today's show. We cannot thank you enough for watching, and we ask that you join the show again tomorrow, 7 a.m. West African time, and follow us on our social media platforms at Sick News TV. Like a post, leave a comment, and we will be glad to hear from you. I'm Blessing Eichie. Do have yourself a lovely day. Stay with Sick News the entire day. From Dr. Idahosa Osamhanze.
Great outcome there. Grace, peace, and strength this Lenten season.
Oyinpreye Krumale.
Yes, I am Oyinpreye Krumale. Good morning once again.